got you. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I got your comment. But yeah, and you are absolutely correct. And so when I saw this in the analytics that some people are wanting to learn how to cope with being an empath, once they discover that that simply means that we have God-given empathy. And we, oh gosh, yes, we learned that a lot of the way that we cope with being an empath in that sense is that got to get control of ourselves first. And that really is part of the trauma healing. Got to get control of ourselves. There. Checking the stuff. But yeah, and it can be a downer, right? And they know this. The evildoers know this, that it can be a downer if we can't be of help to God in this world. Sometimes we can feel we have lost a sense of purpose, and that's what the enemy wants, is for you to feel like you don't, right? You lost a sense of purpose. No. You've got purpose. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. Okay? Yeah. I understand where y'all coming from, but chosen one, empath, y'all have purpose. Yes, you do. Okay? God got something for you to be doing. That's right. Okay? For his glory. And so, right. And the narcissists love to spoil the joy that being helpful brings the empath. Yeah, and they know this. And we also realize that, how to cope with being an empath, it really is all part of the trauma healing, over that rainbow to the other side, get control of ourselves, because that's all we can do. And then we discover that the reason that we were always easily sniffed out by these narcissists is because we had our hearts on our sleeves, meaning our empathy switch was wide open. We didn't realize that because they could see that about us. That's what they're looking for. Remember, the narcissist will target the empath the hardest because their demon spirit know that empaths are chosen children of God. So how to deal with that, how to cope with it. Yeah, it's all part of it. Self-reminders. Remember, trauma healing is full of self-reminders that, yes, you are worthy. You are chosen. See, God chose you out. Okay, Jeremiah 1:5. So, learning how to cope with being an empath definitely requires that trauma healing. And it's all part of it. Because if you're wanting to learn how to cope with being an empath, so you identify that you are, and so you know that part of yourself, who you are in Christ, you know that, because you do have the God-given empathy, because it's not just about being able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and go, hold on a minute, would we do that to, it's not just about that, but it's also about wanting to genuinely help others, because that is our God-given nature as an empath. But we learned that the narcissists, they are just takers and destroyers. They love to give off the appearance of being helpful, but in reality, they're not. They're actually being destructive, because that's what they do. So, yeah, I am Michelle Dickey. your host for CHA's Let's Just Chat show, streaming on the YouTube channel Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequency for healthier living. And coping with being an empath largely includes us learning how to manage our empathy. In other words, we stop giving it freely. We stop giving it to the narcissist. We stop feeling sorry for them because they choose that. I know a lot of people are like, well, if they're kept and unaware that they're demonically possessed, how did they make that choice? Oh, they did. Yeah. They made that choice to live the way they're living. They may not know all of the abuse that they dish out is abuse, but they do know, they know when they're guilt tripping. They know when they're gaslighting. Oh yeah, they know. And so coping with being an empath just really does require us to get control of that empathy and get control of ourselves. That's, again, all we can do. Once we have control over our emotions, that's right, it's part of putting childish things away to cope with being an empath. And then we learn to, set those boundaries. And we don't let anybody cross those. I don't care who it is. We learn how to protect our peace. And then also the other side of how to cope with being an empath is that you got to learn how to be okay being physically alone more often. The empaths typically, we never had an issue with being physically alone. It's just we have to learn how to be okay with that more often because, as part of how we cope with being a chosen one. Staying low key where possible. Because there's monitoring spirits out there. So we stay low key where possible. That's another part of coping with being an empath. But we're not putting all of our stuff on display anymore. That's how we cope with being an empath, is that we're no longer putting things on display. We're not sharing too much information, TMI, anymore. We're no longer giving intimate detail away to anybody. We're no longer as naive to narcissists and evildoers out here. We're no longer ignoring the red flags. That's another way to cope with being an empath, is that we stop ignoring those red flags. We see one red flag, yeah, because we realize that, listen, we all had narc fleas that we had to overcome, aka trauma triggers, okay? We all had some narcissistic traits that we did pick up that we had to put away, right? We had to overcome, and we had to stop engaging in them, right? Before we knew what we were dealing with. Empath, chosen one, we did not take on the full behaviors of these narcissists, no. But we did pick up some, you can call them bad habits if you want to. And so we got to break those and stop engaging in those same behaviors that they are. Some. So we learn. And we have to let that go. And yeah, we got to let those things go in order to cope with being an empath. And once we learn how to keep our empathy switch off and then in the neutral position where it needs to go sometimes, okay, we're never going to let it, no, we're not going to let it go full on anymore. No, you don't want to do that. Because if you turn your empathy switch back on, wide open again, it could be too overwhelming. You're going to sense the neighbors. You're going to sense the fear in the dog. You're going to sense a whole bunch of stuff that you don't need. Okay? You're going to sense that little kid. You know, right. You're going to sense, oh my gosh. Okay? You're going to sense a bunch of different spiritual energies. This is why we say you got to get control of that empathy and never have it go wide open again. You can't do that to cope with being an empath, because you will overwhelm yourself if you ever try to turn it back on all the way. And I know that was a question that our fellow warrior Chris had some time ago as to whether or not we would ever have it back on 100%. No, neutral or off. Now, for our fellow chosen one, we can keep it in the neutral position because naturally we're going to, because we're not feeding on each other. We don't need to. Chosen one empaths don't need to feed on each other. But coping with being an empath, that's how you do it. So that you're not, right, you don't want to channel all the spiritual energies out there. But that's what was happening. We learned this, that spiritual energy transfer, before we learned how to get control of our own empathy. Yeah, we had our switch, oh my gosh, wide open. And that's what attracted the narcissist, though, too. It's not just our anointing, but the fact that they could tell we hadn't gotten control of ourselves yet. And empaths will come into the world as rough diamonds until we realize we need to polish out those rough spots, become more refined as we mature. That's right. That's right. Very good way to put it. We just have to. It's like it's a whole new. Oh gosh, it is. It's a whole new lifestyle. It's a whole new level of awareness, not just about ourselves, but okay, we cannot be out here just giving all the time like that. We can't be out here with just anybody. So learning how to cope with being an empath also requires us to really be mindful who we let into our space, who we let into our personal space. Also be more mindful of who we allow ourselves to be around, because the old saying, we're the company that we keep. And so social influence is very, very strong. So how to cope with being an empath is that it's unfortunate, but we find ways that work for ourselves, but largely we're just not out here, as we grow and mature. Like I said, we have to polish out those rough spots. That's overcoming the trauma triggers, overcoming trauma, and then also to self-reflect. But don't dwell. Don't dwell on stuff. You don't have to do that. But doing a little bit of inner work there, or a lot of inner work, really, is part of it. Learning how to cope with being an empath. And learning how to protect our peace. That's a big one. And we no longer allow external stuff to dictate how we're going to move about our day. Because it's the Godhead on the inside that's guiding our steps. So we break that dependency on external validation. That's another way for how to cope with being an empath, is that realizing you don't need external validation. when the Godhead is on the inside. And that's all the validation that we need. Yes. See, that's what we come to realize. That's how we learn to cope with being an empath once we get a hold of that empathy switch, because, oh, yeah. And then we understand better. Once we're able to keep it off for a while and then manage it in the neutral position as necessary, we come to the realization that the reason we were feeling a lot throughout our lives is because of that empathy. We were channeling spiritual energies. We were channeling how, we were channeling how others were feeling, and it was sometimes tricking us into thinking that it belonged to us. Yeah. And so we realized that that's why we always felt so overwhelmed all the time with not just the emotions, but the energies all around us. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And once we've got it off for a time, and then in the neutral position, that empathy switch, we start to realize a lot more about ourselves. Yeah, who we need to stay away from, who we need to let God remove and just leave them where they're at. That's another way for how to cope with being an empath. It's acceptance. You know what I'm saying? You have to accept who you are. After you figure out who you are, you know you're an empath, you know you've got empathy, that's all it means. I know there's some people out here who got a bunch of people convinced that a Christian, somebody who identifies as a Christian should not identify as an empath because they're trying to paint empath as some sort of witch, and that is not true. I did a video all about that, okay? Yeah, there's that false narrative out there. I caught it on TikTok. And I said, oh, no. So I got up, I did a YouTube video all about that. Don't fall for that narrative, okay? Because all it means, empaths are not witches. All it means is that we have our God-given empathy. That's it. It's that simple. We can put ourselves in other people's shoes and be like, oh, would we want that done to us? That kind of thinking. And then also because we can sense spiritual energy, that's not witchcraft. Being able to sense spiritual energy is a gift from God so that we learn how to cope with being an empath and get control of ourselves, because we realize that emotions are spiritual energies in motion, right? Yeah. And so we learn not to take anything personal anymore, because it's not about us. This life in our time is not about us, right? It's about picking up our cross and following Jesus. And so we realized that as an empath, chosen one, we just learn how to obtain and maintain that emotional regulation. So, because as an empath, and being a chosen one, okay? That's all that means. You're a chosen child of God. And so you're not going... I can't imagine somebody asking how to cope with being an empath. They know that's what they are. I can't imagine them thinking that they're anything but a chosen child of God. I mean, I can't imagine them. I know a narcissist is not going to ask that question because they don't have genuine empathy. And they know it. They don't know what that feels like, because they don't have that gift of being able to channel or being able to sense, is the better word, is being able to sense, okay, the spiritual energies of others. Their demon spirits can see what the human host does not, the narcissist. But how to cope with being an empath. Really, the bottom line is get control of ourselves, and then get control of our empathy switch so that we're no longer overwhelmed with everybody else's spiritual energies in motion. Okay? That's right. And we're able to better identify more about who we are. And that our whole life, that's why we always felt like being tossed to and fro all the time. Yes, empathy comes natural to chosen ones. Absolutely. It is all about picking up our cross and following Jesus. That's right. And I know that some people don't want to hear that, but it's fact. Because being, I can imagine, well, we knew early on there was something spiritual, but we didn't know what it was yet. But because we had our empathy switch on full blast, exactly, we were always feeling sorry for everyone else. And we stopped doing that. Because God even tells us not to be feeling sorry for them. And so, like I said, I don't know how long we're going to be on this live, but if you catch this on the replay, you can share some of your insights, fellow spiritual warriors for Christ, because as the chosen one with the empathy that we have, that's why you have the term empath. Okay, and it does not mean anything other than the fact that we have our God-given empathy, but we got to get control of it. So that's kind of another reason why God awakens us when he does. Think about that for a moment. God awakens us to all this narcissism and the narcissist, and we're like, how did they mirror our empathy back to us? We learned this, that's what they do. And they do it through the eyes. Okay? They do it through our eyes. And so we learn, how we turn it off. It is a spiritual and mental activity. And it's just, you have to ask God, because that's how I learned, was in the last toxic workplace that I worked at. I was trying to figure out how he was doing that. So I was like, nah, this don't feel right. My warning bells were going off. I was like, this don't feel right. Trying to play with my head, like, wait, what, huh? I said, why does it feel like a high school crush? I said, that ain't right. That ain't right. And so I was like, okay, we know that they mirror our empathy, but how do they do that? How are they doing that? And so God had me turn around and look at his eyes. And that's when it was revealed. And I went, oh. And it was just like God stepped in and said, all right, we shut that off. I can't put it into words. It was just, boom, done. It was like a thought process, really. And he got the deer in the headlight look. Because we broke the connection. That's right. It's like the thought. Remember, our thoughts are spiritual power. So once I realized he was mirroring my empathy back to me through my eyes, right, it's like I instinctively went, oh, knock it off. And that was it. That put an end to that. And so how did I prevent him from doing it again? I just basically, instead of trying to look in his eyes or anything like that, I would look at just one eye. Both of my eyes would focus on just one when I had to talk about work-related stuff. That's how I did it. So there's another how to cope with being an empath. Once you realize that that's what they're doing and they're mirroring your empathy back to you through your eyes, ask God. You'll know. Be like, yeah, because if you happen to be, oh, yeah, if you're somewhere and you start to notice that, remember what the high school crush felt like? We didn't realize that those were warning bells and not butterflies. Okay, those are not butterflies like you crushing on somebody. No, that's childish. Okay, that's not love. That's lust. And so you start to experience it because they're mirroring your empathy back to you. But it feels that way, right? Yeah, it feels like you crushing on them. Like you might be falling in love with them because they're mirroring your empathy back to you. So you learn how to get control of that. So you prevent that from happening. And then if you have to still work with them or whatever, both eyes focused on one eye of theirs when interacting or speaking with them. Right. And we know, the narcissists are very utterly selfish. Yeah, very much. And then the narcissist will manipulate or trick empaths into feeling sorry for them and helping them if the empath is still naive and unaware. Well, right, the narcissist will give off the appearance as though they're helping. Never forget that. The devil's all about appearances. So we want to be mindful of that very fact. Because, let's face it, yeah, they won't. Yeah, how to cope with being an empath. It takes determination, it takes dedication, it takes working out that salvation with God. And again, recap. Get control of ourselves. Get control of our empathy. We can do it. And we stop casting pearls before swine. And we stop feeling sorry for them. And that's what they want. And again, for whoever needs this reminder, if you have a grown adult that comes to you with a sob story and puppy dog eyes, do not take the bait. That's not normal. Okay? Puppy dog eyes on a grown adult, no. Not normal, because they're just trying to tug at your heartstrings. See, there's another how to cope with being an empath. We stop letting people and things tug at our heartstrings. If we sense that someone or something's trying to tug at the heartstrings, that's when I'm, hold up a second. Because like I teach and preach often, that God, He already knows our heart. God ain't got to tug at them. God doesn't need to tug at our heartstring. He knows our hearts. Okay? He created them. And He knows that we don't have spiritual wickedness in high places. He knows that that's the evildoers, the narcissists do. And so, right, we learn to rebuke in the name of Jesus, resist the devil and he shall flee. So, there's several how-tos with dealing with being an empath. Is that we just learn to control it. That's all we can do. And not just be out there. Yeah, we're no longer going to be out there. I know sometimes it takes a while to overcome, but we're not going to go back to the old version of who we were before God awakened us. It's not going to happen. No, because that's looking back. We are to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And so that's going to happen. And that's what's happening now. We get that heightened awareness so that we can cope with being an empath. And then, we basically just maintain the emotional regulation. Okay? Once we're able to obtain and maintain that emotional regulation, that helps us cope with being an empath. And we know that we've got the power and authority on the inside of us from God to not allow external things to penetrate our spiritual armor, but also to not internalize or personalize other people's stuff. Because we're told in Galatians 6, verse 5, that every man should bear his own burden. We have enough to focus on ourselves that we don't need to be taking on. That's how you cope with being an empath. You stop. That's part of setting boundaries, that you stop allowing other people to dump their burden onto you. But that's what they want to do. And so we don't allow it anymore. Okay? So really, for those who have popped in a little bit later, this was kind of an, I don't want to say impromptu, but yeah, I wanted to get on here and give some how to cope tips with being an empath today on this channel. Wednesdays are a toss-up for where we go live. If we're not live here on YouTube, that's when we're live on Instagram. If we're not going to do a live that day, I will tell you in the YouTube community. Okay, that's why I highly encourage everyone to subscribe so that you get those notifications and you're not sitting there going, is she going to be live streaming today or not? You know what I'm saying? So that way you'll get those notifs. So yes, narcissists will do, well, yeah, they will misunderstand the word love and assume it is lust or a romance gesture when we're talking about spiritual love, unselfish, non-agenda spiritual love. Thank you. Because the narcissist, well, they're walking in their flesh after their fleshy desires. And so, because they like that unrighteousness, the fornication, the adultery, and things like that, they continue to take pleasure in the unrighteousness. And so God gives them a strong delusion, right? 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 10 through 13 there. Yeah, they take pleasure in their unrighteousness, so he's sending them strong delusion. And they continue. And that's what they're after. They think that love is a fleshy thing. It's not. It's spiritual. And so thank you, Chris, for pointing that out. Very true. It is spiritual love all the way. But they're not going to understand that. That's why chosen ones, we know. And we naturally will have empathy for each other. But we don't have to put it on display. And that's the other thing with how to cope with being an empath is that, we learn that it's not worth the time and energy to keep giving our empathy away freely to whoever. But God tells us not to cast pearls before swine, right? He tells us not to turn holy things over to dogs. Listen, that's in, that's how he puts it. Because we realize that when we did that before, it didn't work out so well, did it? No. Yeah. If we gave them our empathy, they took advantage of it. Right. We're supposed to be developing, seeing each other in terms of spiritual love, like being in heaven. Yeah. Exactly. There you go. Being spiritually minded is life and peace. So thank you for sharing that as well, because it's the truth. It's the truth. So if any of you all have some additional tips that you have utilized and learned for how to cope with being an empath, let's drop those in the comments below, even on the replay, because iron sharpens iron in this growing community of spiritual warriors for Christ. So we want to remember that, it's just not, we don't give our empathy and compassion to just anyone anymore. That's how we cope. Yes, the narcissist always will take advantage of the empath natural natural nature of being giving and wanting to help where possible. They sure do. And so we learn, yep. You see that in the workplace a lot, right? Oh, especially if it's a toxic workplace. Oh, goodness, yeah. This is why we learn because, yeah, real quick. Because when you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Oh, we see it. Especially, toxic workplaces, we see it. Where that when the empath clocks in, and because the empath was, like everyone, conditioned to be people pleasers, and because of the traumatization that we've gone through, we didn't know at the time, we felt like we needed to do as much as we could to get in their good graces or to keep, you know what I'm saying? We used to feel that way. Not anymore. Not anymore. We learned to stop being their doormats. And if you're still in a toxic workplace, hang tight because, God will get you out of there. There's reasons why you're still there. Ask Him. Right, we can recognize the value of our God-given gift of empathy and not to waste it on those who will abuse it. That's it. There you go. That's a big way of how to cope with being an empath is that we learn, right, that empathy we have is highly valuable. It really is. It's very valuable. Why do you think they want to take advantage of it? Exactly, because they know it would wear us down over time. So, yeah, we learn not to allow them to do that anymore. So, we can protect our peace, protect our sanity. And sure, it's going to come off as being cold and crass to them. And that's just them being mad because they're not going to get access to our empathy anymore. And so they're gonna be mad. And they're gonna call us heartless. You gotta lose the allergy to being called the bad guy. That's another how to cope with being an empath. You're gonna hear more about that. Because they're gonna call us the bad guy regardless, no matter what we do. Because we didn't conform to this world. Because we're not like them. Because we're no longer tolerating the abuse. That's another how to cope with being an empath. Is we're no longer tolerating the abuse. Think about that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, making sure I'm not missing out on any questions or comments. But yeah. And that's pretty much what they do. When they take advantage of our empathy, they're abusing it. And so we learn how to not allow them to do that. Because we're not tolerating it from them anymore. And so naturally, they're going to look at us as though we're the bad guy. So, again, if you can think of any other how-tos with coping with being an empath, let's share. Because like I say often, iron sharpens iron in this growing community of spiritual warriors for Christ. So I wanted to point those things out and just to demonstrate that, yeah, we're just no longer wearing our hearts on our sleeves anymore. And we're not letting just anyone into our space, into our lives. We're not letting just anyone anymore. We do the vetting. We test the spirit by the spirit. That's right. Because we're supposed to. That's what God tells us to do. Is to test the spirit by the spirit. And so, yes, we have a lot of energy. Empaths naturally do. That ability to re-energize. Yeah. Empaths have that ability to naturally re-energize. So, that being said, that would be another reason why they target us. But they are, like the have been denied more indulgence by an adult. The child will see that adult as a baddie. Right. Oh, so spot on. That's true. Because when we stop giving them our empathy and compassion, oh yeah, just like a toddler, they'll be like, right, when we were a little kid, indulged. Okay, thank you. Yep, like indulged children who have been denied more, and they'll pout, call the parent a baddie because they didn't get what they wanted. Yeah, classic. Because that's toddler behavior, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, it is. It is. So learning how to cope with being an empath, everybody, it takes time. Give yourself the time and space because that's all part of trauma healing. Yep. And then learning that you have the power and authority to trample on serpents and scorpions. And that's spiritual, meaning that we don't have to allow the evildoers, the narcissist, into our lives anymore. We don't have to. All right, so there you go. I'm going to take the last few minutes here and kind of like tidy up all over here. And right, they will. That's it. Yeah, they'll call us a meanie or that we're being mean because we're not giving them our empathy anymore. And we know that's not true. It's just we're not going to let them wear us out like that anymore. And so I want to take a couple minutes here and let y'all know that the CHA Truth Seeker podcast, the pre-recorded ones that go up on the other hosting site. Okay. That hosting site link, access to that is listed in the description below now. Because as of, and thank you, Chris, for giving me the heads up, as of June 24th, 2024, Google Podcasts has apparently made the announcement that they're going to cancel Google Podcast subscription. They're not going to do podcasting. Okay, but CHA's Truth Seeker podcast will still be up on Spotify. Okay, as far as I know, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Listen Notes, TuneIn, Simplecast, Pandora, iHeartRadio. The list is on the website. Okay, of all the other places. I'll have to take the Google Podcast link out, obviously. But you can access it directly, and you can listen to those podcasts right there on the hosting site, from what I gather. So there's that link below. So some changes, yeah. Okay, yeah, you're very welcome. All of y'all are welcome. Okay, because it is a pleasure to get up and serve the God Spirit in you all, to bring you these truths and how-tos and for that trauma healing so you can get control of yourself, get control of your empathy, not allow them to ruin your day anymore, not allow them to disrupt your peace or destroy your peace, for that matter. So there you go. Big surprise. Oh, you know what? Who knows? Who knows? I'm not even gonna. It is what it is. It is kind of a surprise because podcasting is projected to be it's huge. So I don't know. Anyhow, and then that being said, also the courses at CHA Academy. All right, that link is down below. That's going to take you to how the trauma bond is formed. And so you want to see, check that out. And if you want to see the other courses and the membership to the academy, you'll find all courses. Click on that. If it's not on the header or the footer, it'll be inside the hamburger drop-down menu. It's going to depend on the device that you are viewing that link on, okay? And also, for those who would like to know more about our Patreon content, I've got a almost 16-minute public video. The Patreon link is below, and I share more about the type of content you will unlock access to for as little as $5 a month. Because this ministry and work is my job, y'all. I'm not clocking in anywhere. This content creation, bringing you all the digital product on the Patreon channel to help you combat that radio frequency for healthier living. We're up here bearing fruit. We are putting things together for you all, courses and more videos on how-tos and things like that to help y'all heal from the trauma. And then also for those of you who know that it's a matrix, narcissistic matrix, fallen world out there, and you're ready to accept that you've been lied to since birth about a lot of things. Yeah, that's what you're going to get on the Patreon channel, because we realize that there's a lot of things that we really don't need. It's the truth. And we also learn, for example, you'll hear about how they manipulate the weather using radio frequency. I have a video on the Patreon channel all about that. So, yeah, there you go. Just to give you a glimpse, but there is a public around 16-minute video when you go to the Patreon channel. You scroll down a little bit. It'll be there right at the top. And then on the About page, there is I think around 6-minute, another short video there. That kind of, right, the 16-minute one kind of branches out from that shorter one. So to kind of give y'all a better idea of the type of content we're creating for that channel. We've been building it now, for over 2.5 years. So it's not like it's brand new. And I'm going to tell y'all something. That I know the world has conditioned a lot of people to believe that you need to show how many followers you have or how many patrons you have on that channel. No, you don't. Because if a person is only going to sign up to support the ministry and the work, if they can see how many others are doing so, that would be a narcissist now, wouldn't it? That's why we don't have our patron count public. Those who truly support the ministry and work are going to anyway, because I know that's how I am. Now, as far as other platforms, if they don't have a way for us to turn off the number of followers or subscribers, well, we can on YouTube, but there's a reason. YouTube requires it to be public for other policy reasons and stuff like that. So other platforms, though, Facebook, I turned it off. I turned off how many I'm following on that platform. Because there are those, there's a lot of, I learned about that real quick, where a lot of them were playing the follow for follow, and I'm like, that doesn't, I'm going to check out profiles. I'm not going to be following a page that engages in psychic activity now, am I? No. Absolutely not, because that's witchcraft, and God's clear about that. So we're bringing you all, as much of God's spiritual truth as we can. And so we appreciate all proceeds go right back into the community so we can keep these things rolling, keep bringing y'all more stuff, more courses, more how-tos, more education. I got tons of books I can create courses from right there to bring you all basic scientific fact in its simplicity. So for those who may not know, that is a bachelor's in. Above that is a master's in forensic toxicology. And we're not done yet. We're still working on some stuff. And just know that God has us get things for a reason. Okay? He has us get things for a reason. My toxicology knowledge plays a huge role in the academy, and also the knowledge about radio frequency poisoning and that metal toxicity. And so I bring y'all facts, basic facts about all of that for healthier living, to take better care of this temple for the Holy Spirit. And so, yes, the Patreon channel has 3 tiers. And so for as little as $5 a month, you can unlock access to not only exclusive content and videos, but also to the Truth Analyzer podcast. So you would branch out from the Truth Seeker podcast that's on that platform and the live stream of it here on YouTube every Tuesday around 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we branch out and we analyze further on the Patreon channel with that podcast. So there you go. You get a lot of value, and not to mention the digital product line to help you combat that radio frequency for healthier living. And yeah, it's wonderful. And then we also have on the website, for anybody who's interested, if you've not seen them yet, we have Real Talk with God's Wisdom videos available for sale on the website. So to let y'all know you're not crazy, that what you're experiencing is real, and that it's normal. You're having normal reaction to an abnormal circumstance when God awakens it. Oh my goodness, we're dealing with the narcissist. You didn't know that's what they were at first, but you eventually Google it because you had to Google their behaviors, right? There you go. So, yeah, you can hop on over there and take a look at those. And again, for those who may be concerned with storage space on your devices, just know that all of our digital downloads off the website are available to download on up to 3 different devices. Okay? That's one way to remedy, right? If you've got several devices. But one of the biggest ways is to have an external hard drive. Something like this even, okay? And so that way you can store the videos off the website, the digital products off of Patreon. Because let's face it, you all, we are in the digital era, because the digital products definitely provide that instant gratification. You get it right away, pretty much. Through an email, you get the download link, and you can download it on up to 3 devices off the website. All of our digital products, PDF, books, magazine, all of them, and the videos. So I highly appreciate y'all that hop on over there and get you some of those videos, because they're real talk. Okay? They are real talk. Just one-on-one. I'm letting y'all know, yeah, that's normal. Yes, that's normal. You're going through that, that's normal. And then on down, I believe number 6 and 7, I start branching into some more truth with the radio frequencies and stuff like that. So, but I highly encourage y'all to check those out. And we have always more on the way. Absolutely. Okay, that's what we're doing for you all. We are co-creators without a creator in God's reality. Glory be to God. And so we learn not to let our empathy control us. So thank you all for your continued support. And to those who have pledged service grants, thank you. And to all who will, the PayPal link to do so is listed below. And so for anyone who's wondering, you can pledge a service grant to the PayPal, okay, to our PayPal as a gift. You don't have to have a PayPal account, right? They've done that. So there you go. Any question, don't hesitate to reach out. If you drop those in the comments on the replay, I'll get to those as soon as possible. And so there you go. All right, I'm sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your support. Till next time, let's show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.